Hi, I'm Mike, and this is an intro. Alright, what we got here is the Alloro Ageless Aesthetic EDH deck, specifically the casual variant. Now, it's not a moderate budget deck, and it's not an aggressive legacy or legacy level play type deck, specifically because it's EDH and it's casual. And I'm going to put a lot of cards in here that are not as cheap as I would usually like to stick to. There's going to be some cards that are, honestly, you got to invest money to get these things. And some that are actually quite budget cards and are surprisingly so. Yeah, there's going to be a mix. Really though, this is just the deck that I think is fun to play. And, so without further ado, here it is. First off, we got the 5/4 Alloro. He's a 6-drop, Esper color specifically, blue, black, white. And he has a really interesting ability that triggers if he's in the command zone or on the field. So, without any doubt, you're almost always going to get 2 life each upkeep. The fact that when he is on the field, though, you can pay 1 for each instance of life gain, and you draw a card, and your opponents lose a life, but really, you draw a card, just makes him insane. So what you're probably going to guess is the big thing about this deck is that it's going to do 2 things well. It's going to have a lot of instances of life gain, and it's going to put a lot of mana in. Now, because the mana abilities are pretty much just going to be mana rocks and things like that, I'm not going to include them in this deck list, or at least the video portion. I'll actually have a list up with all of that on it, but that'll be later. What you're going to mostly see are the cards that support it, and just are fun to play. So without further ado, here's the rest of the deck. Ivory Tower. It's a 1-drop colorless artifact that lets you gain life at the beginning of your upkeep equal to your size of your hand, -4. Just useful, especially if you have some way to draw more cards. Pristine Talisman. Now I said I wasn't going to put the mana rocks in here, but this is a 3-drop colorless artifact that lets you tap for colorless mana, and you gain a life. It pays for itself with Alloro's ability. Helm of Awakening. This is an interesting card, mostly because all spells are reduced by 1 generic mana cost. All spells. That means your opponents too. The thing is, I've played this quite a few times, and people just don't seem to catch on that they're okay with using this for themselves as well. I'm not going to complain when they don't take advantage of something I play, and I know about it, so I will. That and it's a 2-drop, so it's cheap to get out, and it's like a 25-cent card. It's just really cheap and very good for what it does. Mystical Teaching. It lets you search up an instant or flash card and put it into your hand. Now, sure, you have to reveal it, so if it's a counter and you want to be secretive about it, it doesn't help too much. But really, the fact that it has flashbacks, you can use it twice, and it's a search card in EDH, so it's just useful. Bloodchief Ascension. It's a 1-drop black card that, once it has enough counters for each opponent losing 2 life in a turn at the beginning of their end step, once it has all that covered, whenever a card is put into a player's graveyard from anywhere, specifically an opponent's, you gain 2 life and they lose 2 life. Reverse the order and you pretty much have it down. This is a deck that needs life gain instances. This is a 1-drop that will probably quickly feed you that. Condemn. Yeah, it's just great for getting rid of a general that you really don't want to play. Phyrexian Reclamation. It's a 1-drop enchantment with a colorless and a black cost, and pay 2 life to return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Yeah, if you lose a creature card and you want to play it again, here you go. This will do it. And it sticks around, so it's very versatile. Diabolic Tutor. Put the card you want in your hand. There's really not much to say about this card. It just works. And it's really cheap. Animate Dead. 2-drop enchantment that lets you do exactly what it says. You animate a dead card. Put it into your field. There's also like a small little reduction in its attack. So if you want to attack with a 1/1, it becomes a 0/1, but really, if you're doing this, you're going for something big and scary, probably. Or useful, and you don't need the attack. Which is also why Unburial Rites is awesome. It has flashback for the exact same, ability, effect, whatever. Basically, over its 2 uses, you can return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Specifically your graveyard, so you can't steal other people's stuff, but the stuff in your graveyard should be pretty good by this point. Crawl Space. This card is simply in here to buy time. In this deck, there's a lot of big creatures, but sometimes they're high mana cost, so it takes you time to build up what you want. This builds time. You can use it. And your opponents can still get swarmed even if you can't. Speaking of high cost, Quicksilver Amulet. 4-drop artifact that for 4 and tap lets you put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. Yeah, that's just good. And so is Megara's Tome. Yeah, sure, I probably mispronounced that, but basically, you find 5 cards. Any 5 cards, shuffle them, put them under here face down, and then whenever you draw a card, you can instead pay 2 and take the top card from under Megara's Tome and put it into your hand. So basically, for the cost of 5 and another, well, 10 for the effect, which is a 2 to activate, you can take the 5 cards from your deck and put them into your hand. That should be enough to win the game, because searching for the 5 cards you need is, unless you're playing really odd, like trying not to win, this could do it. And since it's a casual deck, if nothing else, it'll be the 5 cards you want to play. Toxic Deluge. So good for getting rid of either indestructible creatures that you can't deal with, or swarms of little annoying things that can overrun you. Sure, you have to pay the life for it, but it's a 3-drop that lets you do it, just for how much life you want to lose. And with this deck, you should have a lot to lose before you even notice it, which will be enhanced by Noble Purpose. The 5-drop Y enchantment that gives you non-keyworded lifelink. Basically, it stacks. It's a little slower than lifelink if you're getting into the specifics, but it stacks with lifelink and other variations of this as well. Very good if you want to get a lot of life. Fabricate. Search for an artifact, reveal it, shuffle your library, put the artifact you got into your hand. Yeah, it just is pretty good. Limdual's Vault. I'm a little iffy on this card, actually. I like it, and when it works well. But it works best when you are late game and you have absurd amounts of life and you can pay it into here to find the 1 card you want and put it in. Now, it's iffy. If you have near infinite life at this point, or life is no longer ever going to be an issue for you, this card's perfect. It's an instant for 2 that lets you get the card you want. If it's early game, though, maybe paying in the 5 or 10 life to get the perfect card, maybe that might not be as good. There's more effects to it, but really that's what you're going to do it for. One of the better reasons to do that card is to get this. Well of Lost Dreams. 4-drop artifact that basically is Alloro's ability, but instead of instances of life gain, it's every single life is a good reason to draw cards. If you gain 10 life and then you pay 10 mana, you draw 10 cards. If you gain 10 life and you pay 1 mana, you draw 1 card. It gives you an unparalleled amount of versatility, and considering there's going to be so much life gain in this deck, it is easy to get the cards you want and just draw up what you need. Cradle of Vitality. For every instance of life gain, you can pay 2, and then get +1/+1 counters on target creature you control. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Oh, no, actually, target creature. Doesn't have to be one you control, so you can bribe people with this. The thing is, the counters are for the total of the life gain, but you can activate it per instance. And the fact that it's a, colorless and a white just to activate is pretty nice. These next 2 cards are cheap to play, sorta. You'll see what I mean. Sanguine Bond and Exquisite Blood. Yeah, I know, this is the black infinite combo. Yeah, I know, I said this is a casual deck, and to be fair, it is. I rarely play these 2 together. But they both have massive swing abilities that either hurts your opponents or helps you. And helping you in this deck is actually worse for your opponents than hurting them directly. So, if you get either one of them out on their own, they can swing the balance of the game in your favor easily. And if you get them both out, well, the game's over, and you can start over and play a new one. Alright, I'm just going to get these out of the way now. True Conviction. Yeah, it's a 6-drop, and I don't like the fact that it takes 3 white to get it, but that shouldn't be too big of a deal late game, which is when this card's most effective. Creatures you control have Double Strike and Lifelink. Now, a lot of the creatures in here will have Lifelink already, but for those that don't, this helps. And Double Strike. Yeah! Oh, that is so good. It's just Any deck that has a lot of lifelink creatures, or just creatures in general with this card, becomes a massive threat. It makes your potential force just that much bigger. So does Omniscience. Okay, it's another cheap card to play, not to buy or not to cast, though, if you get what I mean. But the thing in this deck is, you always have to make the decision of, do I want to spend my mana to draw cards, or to play the cards I drew? This just makes the decision much simpler by saying, I will pay mana to draw cards, and then just play them. Next up, Pestilence. This is a control card. Specifically, it's going to make it so that you won't be overrun by a whole swarm of tiny little creatures, because you can always just pay a black and sweep them. Specifically if they're 1-drops, or 1 defense, toughness, whatever. Or pay more and take out a swarm of bigger creatures. And theoretically, you can also kill an opponent with this, but you need a lot of time in life, which makes this card much easier to win on. Specifically, Test of Endurance. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 50 or more life, you win the game. It's a 4-drop enchantment that makes you the threat. Everyone will go after you. Although there have been games where, for some reason, my opponents have forgot it was out, and I've won. But those were weird. Mostly, though, this is just a good little threat to have on the board to make sure that people never really know what's going on. And if for some reason anything distracts them, you win. Or if you've played them out, you win. If you're in a stalled game, this is a good way to end it. Trinket Mage. Now we're getting into the creatures. Trinket Mage is a pretty good one. Basically, search for an artifact card with a convert mana cost 1 or less, including the artifact lands, which I have in the deck, but I'm not going to show you because lands. Basically, he searches something that will be helpful. Not winning the game, just helpful. And for a 3-drop, that's perfect. Runescarred Demon. Yeah, he's basically a tutor effect when he hits the field. That's just really good. Phyrexian Metamorph. Another card that's just really good. It comes in as a copy of target, or specifically anything that's already on the field that happens to be either an artifact or a creature. The fact that he's a 3 colorless and Phyrexian blue, which means either blue or 2 life, and you'll have the life, he's just good. Sheldred. Yeah, I kind of feel like an ass for playing this card, but I like playing it too much not to do it. It's a 7-drop, 6/6 Swamp Walker. Yeah, I know, Swamp Walk. Who? Yeah, really. It has Swamp Walk. Who'd have thought? But yeah, at the beginning of your upkeep, you reanimate a creature, and at the beginning of every opponent's upkeep, they sacrifice a creature. If anyone's doing a Voltron-style deck, this stops them. Swarm decks it's practically useless against, but you still get the reanimation, which is nice. Especially for cards like Serra Avatar. Okay, I lie. It's terrible for Serra Avatar because she shuffles in. You gotta do something really wrong, and by wrong, I mean not reading the card if you're reanimating Serra Avatar with Sheldred. But Serra's Avatar, I think it's female, her, probably, power and toughness is equal to your life total, which, with this deck, should be massive. And if for any reason you give it lifelink, you see where I'm going with this one, right? Alright, the next 3 cards I like to jump in together. Soul Warden, Soul's Attendant, and Suture Priest. The first 2 make it so that if someone goes with a swarm tactic, you get the life. And Suture Priest makes it if someone goes for a swarm tactic, they lose all the life. This alone makes it so that someone might lose the game if they go infinite. And the other 2 just give you so many instances of life gain that you can easily draw the cards you need very quickly. And specifically maybe get out Serra Ascendant. Yeah, just get these in order. It's a 1-drop, 1/1 that has lifelink. But if you have 30 or more life, cough cough, EDH starts at 40, cough cough, it gets +5/+5 in flying. So at first turn 6/6 flying lifelinker. Yeah, it's not fair, but it's fun. Especially with Rock's Faithmender. A 4-drop 1/5 that doubles what you gain, and it has lifelink. But it doubles all life you gain. Now, it doesn't count as a separate instance, so it doesn't really affect Alloro too much. But it quickly lets you get so much life that you can start paying more and like taking the damage rather than worrying about being hit. Like this Viscopo Guildmage. Sure, for 3, colorless black-white, it gives target creature lifelink, which could be interesting. But for that same cost, whenever you gain life this turn, each opponent loses that much life. It makes it so that whenever you hit someone with a really big lifelinker, you pay 3 and the damage is effectively doubled. And it's each opponent, so if you hit one, you hit them all. Yeah. Johnny's Pridemate. He's a 2/2 for 2 that gets bigger per instance of life gain. Now, it's not per life, which would make him absurd. He's just per instance, which is still downright scary considering you will be swarmed with instances of life gain in this deck, such as from Vampire Nighthawk. A 2/3, 3-drop Flying Death Touch Lifelinker. Yeah, if nothing else, he can stop Emrakul. Granted, if you're playing a deck that's playing Emrakul, you might want to remind that player that he's banned. But he's just an awesome card, and he's very, very versatile and very useful, such as Divinity of Pride. He gets +4/+4 if you have 25 or more life. You will have that, unless you were doing something really wrong in this deck. Now, he's a 5-drop, but he's black or white, so you can probably combo out, or not combo, but affix your mana to get that. And that he also has Flying and Lifelink, so really, for 5, you have an 8/8 Flying Lifelinker. Yeah, useful. Such as Baneslayer Angel, another 5 for 5. Flying, First Strike, Lifelink, protections from demons and dragons. Yeah. If for some reason you're playing a Kalia deck, this gets rid of most of what your opponents are going to be using. Unless they're using Angels, in which case you're boned still. But if nothing else, First Strike, 5/5, Lifelink means you're going to be able to use it to get options quickly. Such as Batterskull. The 5/5, or well, 5-drop Artifact Equipment. That's better. It's a living weapon, so it comes in equipped with a Germ token, or something like that. And the Germ then gets +4/+4, Vigilance, and Lifelink. Then, if someone's destroying all artifacts with, like, Shatterstorm or some of the other cards have similar abilities, you can return Batterskull to its owner's hand, specifically yours. Now, the equip is 5, so it's not the cheapest card to equip. But it comes in with a living weapon effect, so it's not that bad. Sphinx of the Steelwind. It's the functional, sorta, reprint of Akroma, except it's a Sphinx, and it's Esper colors, so it fits in this deck perfectly. And it has Lifelink. Flying, First Strike, Vigilance, Lifelink, pro-red, pro-green. The fact that it's a 6/6 doesn't hurt either. It's just a really good card, and if you reanimate it, or you cast it, or just even for the Lifelink effect, it's useful. Especially when you include Drogskull Reaver. The 7-drop, Esper color, 3/5, Flying, Double Strike, Lifelink. Whenever you gain life, draw a card. Now, this card right there makes Alloro's ability look silly, because you don't pay the life, you just draw the card. Now, it's per instance, so if you gain 50 life, you just draw one card. But if you have the Priests out, and you gain 1 life for a creature, you can easily draw yourself out. Which is actually a problem because you can easily draw yourself out with this card. You're going to have a lot of instances of lifelink. So having some way to kill yourself, or specifically this creature, might be useful because he's temperamental. Use him when you're not going to draw yourself out. Don't use him if you're late game and low on a deck. Daxos of Meletis. I am saying that wrong. I know I am saying that wrong. I have no idea how to say it right. This card's interesting. He comes in with his own sort of protection, where he can't be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater. So if you're going against a bunch of Voltron commanders who don't have many creatures out besides things they cannot lose at all, he probably will just be a free hit for 2/2. The fact that he exiles target player's top card, and then you can pay colorless mana to cast it, is nice. The fact that, if nothing else, you will get life off its converted mana cost is an instance of life gain, which is so useful in this deck. The fact that he's a 3/3 just makes him better. Sphinx Sovereign. God-awful expensive, odd colors, just because the double blue for some reason strikes me as odd. But, flying, at the beginning of your end turn, usually says step, you gain 3 life if Sphinx Sovereign is untapped. Otherwise, each opponent loses 3 life. On the one hand, 3 life is a really good gain for you, and it can combo out well with most of your cards. On the other, every opponent losing 3 life whenever it's tapped, that's also not bad, especially later game. It's just a nice, steady little beat stick, or a steady way to gain life. Both are useful. Not great, but useful. Wall of Reverence. At the beginning of your end step, you may gain life equal to the power of target creature you control. On its own, you gain 1 life, which isn't bad, but it's an instance, so it helps. But if for any reason you have some of your bigger creatures out, or best possible option, Sarah's Avatar, you're going to get so much life that it's insane what you can achieve. And it's a 4-drop flying defender, 1/6, so it can probably save you at least a hit. Magister Sphinx. This card will win games, or specifically make it so you can win a game. It enters the battlefield and target player's life becomes 10. You're going to have a lot of creatures that can chip away at that in maybe a hit or 2. Hell, this guy can do a 2-turn rotation on it. 3 if you don't have somebody to give him haste or flash him in or any of that shenanigans. It's just useful, especially if you're going against another Alloro deck that has a god-awful amount of life that you can't touch. This makes it so that you can. And, if for any reason you have blinking effects in your version of the deck, he's even better. Alright, other than that, there's just a handful of other cards, mostly the mana ones. The only card I need to now pronounce, or announce, is Academy Ruins. There's a lot of artifacts in this deck. Getting them back is useful, specifically if you use a land that can't be countered. Now, if it counters abilities, you're still screwed with this card. But, anything that says put target artifact card in a graveyard, and specifically in your graveyard, on top of your library, in a deck that will let you draw so much cards easily, if you're playing it right, is good as saying, take a card from your graveyard and put it onto your library, and then into your hand. Yeah, useful. Alright, that's Alloro Ageless Aesthetic EDH, specifically the casual variant with no moderate budget limit. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do, leave a like and subscribe to my channel. And if for some reason you want to see a specific commander, hey, give me a heads up. I'm okay with doing anything. Or if you want to challenge me to a commander, I'll be okay with that. Yeah.